like the outside decks and things like that. That's where people like with pizza and all these things like that's like it's almost like I don't know what they're doing in COVID times, but where did it go this cruise?
They actually had pizza also. So there was a restaurant on the cruise, and they had a kosher oven at this pizza store. And it was incredible pizza too. It was like thin and small pizza. We went to the Bahamas, Jamaica, and Haiti. It was amazing weather.
So nice.
It was awesome.
You have like a day stop there, or like in between, or something like that.
Each one was like you're there for like 12 hours or whatever, and you could get off and like do different excursions. Like we just went to the beach on one of them in the Bahamas. We like did this dolphin thing, but it was good stuff.
Sounds good. It's fair to say the most sobering thing about this loss is that there isn't really that much to talk about.
Yeah, like it's a little bit, right? Like it's like, to a certain extent, they won the game. Yeah, we can hear you, Mayor. Awesome, I see us.
Can we get a tweet going with? Just tweet from Ball Habatim and we'll retweet you.
I'm like pulling up the stats. Listen, when you're at the game, it's like it's hard to.
You
keep track, but like generally, and then it's like it's more the keeping track with what you think, what you feel.
Oh, I'm so curious what that Lando starting thing was. Not that it's relevant.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Ofex, 19 minutes, 1 of 3 sticks out.
He didn't play down the stretch.
He didn't play, but it's not like he was playing much. He played 19 minutes, had 3 fouls, 1 assist, and nothing. And 5 points.
Yeah. They fell in love with the lineup of Leifer, Halpert, Terrell, Zucker, Lasto. They fell in love with it, and I mean,
what
was that? Cutting out.
There's been something off. Oh, my internet isn't so great.
Don't worry about it. I can hear you. You're good.
No, I'm saying there's been something off with Ofex since the IW game.
Agreed. Yeah, right. It's
like he hasn't had the bounce that he used to have earlier in the season.
I know. And I don't know if it's like a chicken and the egg thing, but like it also is coinciding with Leifer not having like double-digit assist games and standing in the post.
He had 8. But yeah, I agree. I think a lot of his assists are like Ofex cuts, and that threat opens up the offense, and they didn't really have that. I don't know. There's a lot. I guess there's a lot of things that happen in the game, but again, like there's not that much to take from it. I don't know. Well, I guess we'll discuss.
I mean, I think we could take that. Part of it, at least, what I'm taking away is, I think we're going to see, if there's a healthy Lasco, I think we're going to see a lot of that lineup. That lineup they stuck with in the game. Yes, Ofex. I mean, I have, thoughts about. I think the more because I continue to see them running, I would say plays here and there, or at least isolation here and there. Right. Again, still not sure why they chose tonight to run, posting up Matan, with a guy just hanging, in the paint. But in generally speaking, I think they don't look for Ofex when those things are going on. Meaning they look for Ofex off cuts and off motion off the back door, but when they run any isolation to whoever it is, they're not looking at Ofex. I mean, there were a couple of plays when Ofex was in at the end of the first half, or a D. I mean, I don't know what you guys were seeing for the broadcast, but it was like right in front of us where I was sitting. A D was basically only looking left. Ofex was wide open on the other sideline, and that's where he threw it, I think, to their bench on that play. But he literally only looked left.
Ethan made a cut, and he threw it to where he thought Ethan was going to pop more.
If he turns right, he has Ofex with a guy with nobody within 10, 15 feet of it. Like it was just nobody's there. But he was only looking one way. So again, there were times when he was in, and they don't have plays to get Ofex the ball other than through the motion. Like there's no other times where they want him there.
Yeah, I think one of the things, think about the passing lanes that Gabe typically has, right? So Gabe has the best passing lanes when he has let's say he has the ball at the high post or off a post touch, there are potentially 2 cutters on both sides of him, and there are 2 shooters. That's where passing lanes open up. But if Gabe has the ball on the perimeter, right, and his defender is playing 10 feet off of him, like taking away those cuts, basically, for all intents and purposes, you have to make like an absolutely perfect pass, which Gabe isn't going to attempt for the most part, to beat a defender who's sagging off 10 feet with cuts the lane. And then and you keep guys on the 2 shooters that Gabe has. It really takes away those passes that we see Gabe mostly make.
I mean, again, they're sloughing off. Although, listen, even with that, and I'm much like some of them, you're like, wait. No, he's seeing something there. He hit Jordan 3 times with layups that Jordan should have had, where he actually passed it right over the defender to Jordan. It still got there from the high post, and Jordan couldn't convert, right, a couple of times. So there were still some really good passes being made, and just a lot of layups being missed here and there.
Actually, I want to run plus minus. I'm going to run some. I'm curious if the game is logged already at NCAA stats, but I want to run plus minus on this game for players.
For players, I mean, listen, outside of a handful of players in the second half, nobody really played other than that lineup. I mean, again, Gabe, I've never seen Gabe play that many minutes. 39.
I think Jordan had a major. Jordan, I think, had a very large negative.
I wonder. I mean, obviously, yeah. Anybody who played most of the first half is probably going to have negative. Ofek probably has negative. Ryan, maybe the only ones to.
Wait, do we have a tweet that we could retweet?
I just put something out there.
Okay, I'll read.
And I think we have Ball Habatim, so you could probably check. Well, if nothing else, it was a great game. Meaning to actually watch a close, fun game, which I have never remembered seeing in my short tenure as a fan. So that was really cool. I mean, what was it like to be there?
Oh, it was unreal. I'll tell you, it took me back to Purchase a few years ago in a game we dropped at home. But it was really, I mean, the mood there. And I'll tell you how many, again, at the very end, just shocked fans. But the whole way, really into it. I've actually never seen the fans plus the parents of the players get on the refs more than I saw tonight. Again, there were a lot of calls that, I guess precipitated it. And I guess if you're watching it, to be honest, I'm always much more, and I'll caveat by saying I'm always much more, benefit of the doubt on the refs. There was only 2 calls that I really had issues with. There was one on a foul called on Gabe underneath, where there were actually 2 fouls called on Gabe underneath. But again, the guy said he hit him in the face in the second call. But the first call, where it looked like there was no contact, straight up, I think it was on 55 on Snot, going up, probably with. It was in the first half because I think the call was on the other side of the basket. That was one of them. And then I don't get this happened a couple times.
The double foul,
but the double foul call, and they were talking. I mean, listen, they were talking about it for a while. If the ref, who by the way should have been wearing a jersey with this color on, there was one ref that should have been wearing a green jersey the whole game. I mean, literally, it was just. He wasn't giving YU an inch, and he was calling everything. He's the guy who called that. And I don't know how he was working both baselines. He was working the defensive baseline and then the offensive baseline, which shouldn't be happening in a ref rotation. So I have no idea what was going on there, but he was working both baselines for most of the game.
He was hustling.
He was hustling, right? He was hustling. There was one play. So early on in the second half, maybe first half, but I think early on in the second half, Ofek got called for that foul where he hit 33 and they both fell down. Right, he came out on him above the 3-point line, and then he was talking to the other ref, and that ref came down and switched with that ref. He switched to the baseline because he told Ofek he has something to say. He should say it to him. And I'm like, why is he looking to engage the players in foul calls and tee them up? That's not what refs should be doing. I just didn't like the way he was carrying himself the whole game. But other than that, and the play with a double foul, where literally Lasco's just standing there. and the guy runs through him, and I don't understand the call. And honestly, he doesn't make that call. The outside ref was calling a charge. He was picking up his hand to call a charge. He had a charge, and that's why they ended up calling the double foul. So I don't understand it. I don't know what he saw to slide it over. But most of the other calls were, again.
And you know what that means? You know what that means that they still double foul. That means that they went to talk about it, and the ref who had the charge, I saw the charge, and the other guy said no, like he asserted that he saw something.
Hey, no, it's basically the refereeing version of a jump ball. It's weird, but they took it in stride.
There were a bunch of fouls.
But typically, when refs get together, you'll have like one ref who asserts himself, who says like, "Oh, I had a better angle" or whatever. I clearly saw this. This one, the guy, the one who called the charge, clearly.
Hey, Yako.
Hey, how you doing?
But the guy making the call.
By the way, that ref again. I know that's why he didn't make the calls, but his haircut was very low to his hair. Some may have called him a skinhead. Some may call him a skinhead.
First of all, that wasn't the ref making the calls. Second of all,
he was the one that made the calls down the stretch.
No, I mean, like, again, there was a bald ref, there was a young ref who I think on that play, by the way, the young ref was giving to the other two. I mean, that's the reality. Is the young ref.
Early on, they were definitely giving them calls. Early on, they were giving them calls.
We will never focus on the refereeing, from that standpoint. I mean, they were down 12. Yeah, they were down 12. We don't talk about, again, refs being anti-Semitic or any of that stuff. We can't have those conversations. We don't that's, first of all, it's the most baseless claim with no proof and backup. It's second of all, it's silly because why you played poorly. They put themselves in position.
Yeah,
so we gotta be careful. But at the end of the day, again, I've never seen, like I said, I was saying before you jumped on, Brad Terrell, Mrs. Terrell, other fans, other parents. I've never seen the parent body have such animus
I
to
really
the referee. I never saw that before. They were doing more than the players.
I thought it was especially egregious reffing. I honestly I didn't say this in the prior games when other people were complaining, and I was like, yeah, but we just didn't play well and whatever. I do think that there's like some things we could have done better, and there's a lot that we could have done better and talk about, but I do think it was a real factor in this game. I just really, the calls on Leifer, and then that charge from the guy was not even set at all. They called the charge on us. I guess it was on Lesko. Is that the one you guys are talking about? He took the ball down and the guy ran into him. It's a defensive foul. It's not a charge unless you plant yourself. Totally didn't plant himself.
I couldn't see the play on. Do you see the one where both
fouled? Are you talking about the one where both?
The double foul or the other?
I'm not talking about that. You're talking the double fouls when two max.
We're talking about it in the second half.
There was one they called on.
And there was the one charge
where he got knocked over.
Crazy.
Yeah, that one.
I couldn't see that play.
Body check. To not body check
was the pick legal? Was like how did that play happen? Because I couldn't see it.
It didn't even look like they were sending a screen. Halper was running through, and he met up with Sanat, and Sanat tossed him, and Halper literally, Sanat's a very large human being, and Halper flew into Lasco, and they both ended up on the floor.
So I think, and this is a place to maybe stop and talk about this, because this happened. Can we just sit on Halper and his defense? I just want to talk a little bit about that, because I think it needs to be addressed.
Yes.
There are a couple plays that just stick out, other than the fact, early in the game, number 5 hitting some big shots. First of all, kudos to Farmingdale. They hit huge shots all game long, huge shots. Threes,
every time they need.
We couldn't string two stops together. Yeah, we couldn't string two stops together until 5 minutes left in the game.
They also they were getting it from a bunch of different guys. There were 4 or 5 guys that had double digits, and
3 was big. He was the one who was getting 15, getting offensive boards on rebounds. 5 and 0 really were the ones driving them crazy in most of the plays. But 33, and again, I don't know who, and obviously Hurwitz, who we're going to sign, and move over to YU. At some point, he had his 2 big threes and he had his shots, but here and there, but most of the offense wasn't trying to run through him. But let's talk about Halpert on D, because the one play that sticks out to me in my mind is the first big push. They get it back down to 4 right out of the timeout. 33 hits a shot from probably 33 feet. But it's Halper who just doesn't extend on the threes to anybody. He just doesn't extend. He doesn't play on ball defense one-on-one, right? Like Lasco, like Terrell when he gets into it, like Adi when he's trying. Sometimes he gets called for the foul, but he's the only guard even Ofek plays on ball to an extent. Halpert doesn't. It didn't seem, and this is just every game, he just doesn't play on ball defense. He's
like
waiting
he doesn't
for the
close
action to come
out.
for him. No, he doesn't. Yeah, he's just not. He's just letting his guys take what he gives them. Like he's not. He's the intensity level on defense isn't there. It's like he's saving himself for offense.
He plays a great zone defense, but they're playing man to man.
He looks for.
Yeah,
he looks to steal. He gets guys going by, but a 1-on-1. Not that their guy is their best player, but 4 points. I just get it to 4, and you got 4 minutes and change. I don't even know how much time's left at that time. Everyone's have to be body up on the man, right? It's like a 3rd and 3, and you're letting the slant beat you. It's like how you can't do that. There are times in the game, even if it's not your style, that you have to be able to play your man.
If you're playing man defense, you got to pick your man up if he has the ball. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
The sad thing, I mean, and it's something that's definitely he can improve on. We've seen Eitan play much better defense. I mean, watch the 2 games from the tournament. Watch a lot of him when he was more in the playing for his spot mindset versus now. He really he manned up on defense.
Again,
he used to come off the bench.
He had a lot of big plays.
Agreed.
Yeah. No, he used to not play at all, and then all of a sudden he became a starter. That was in 1920.
He's quick.
He became a starter the second half of purchase. Yeah, he gets a lot of steals off the ball also. Like the last line of defenses, he steals the ball from them. We don't see that this year. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's something that he has it in.
Theoretically, he's quick and strong. He should be a very good defender.
Well, you go back to earlier in the game, and you have him make that great play, right? On 0 driving off the pick. He plays it all the way to the basket and ends up with a block, right? Ends up with a block on the layup attempt. So he does put it together on some points. And I think he's when they come at him in the paint, he's there, but he on the rotation, off pick and roll action, he's just not extending to shooters. And that, they shot 10 for 17. I don't know when you look at the tape, they shot 10 for 17 from 3. When you end up with the tape, I'm not sure how many of those 17 were contested. Probably
not
3 or
enough.
4. Probably 3 or 4. So there's a lot of open
rotation. Down the stretch they were, but in the first half.
Down the stretch they weren't hitting them as much.
Yeah. In the first half they were.
There was one specific 3-pointer that stuck out to me. I think they missed this one, but he started his closeout from in the paint, and the guy was already shooting the ball. That just stuck out to me. There was no one within 20 feet of him. And it was wide open shooter,
rebounded wide, but yes, exactly. He got away with it, but ultimately there was no one on
the makes and misses is not important. If you're there on the shots, the misses are going to come.
This is what we saw in Sunday's game. Sunday's game was the same thing. These guys were wide open.
So let's talk about the lineups for a bit. So
you're on camera.
Shua, what did you see? You were mentioning, okay, so the lineup that they went with down the stretch, right? Because we chatted about this in WhatsApp. So just curious what you were saying, if you could embellish. They went with Terrell, Zucker, Leifer, Halper, and Lasco. But you were mentioning that you thought that maybe they should have tried going smaller. Can you explain what that means and why you thought that might have been a particularly good strategy for this team?
So first of all, I want to say this is taking nothing away from Matan because he was probably their best player on the court. The general idea I was talking about is, and it especially pertinent against Farmingdale State. Farmingdale State has a strategy where they completely sag off non-shooters. They ignore Matan when he's on the perimeter, and they even partially sag off Gabe. So if you have 2 guys who the defense is able to ignore to a certain extent, they're not going to be passing lanes open, especially for Gabe. If Gabe is one of the people who they're sagging off, his defender is going to take away a lot of those easy passes. So in those instances, I would be interested to see. I'm not 100% sure this worked. I'm interested to see that with total balls. Gabe 5 surrounded by the first lineup, and they played this for literally 1 possession, and then something. But I would be interested in Gabe, Ryan, Ethan, Eitan, Ofek. That's one. And then, sorry, did I cut off?
A little bit, but we got you.
We got your lineup at the end. So you want Gabe as the 5 and then the 4 like shooters.
So tonight, how much of that do you think was impacted? Because we were having this conversation in the car ride home. Again with my 10-year-old who had a lot of thoughts about the lineups. But Gabe had 3 fouls, and I think that impacted. You saw Matan was the one, right, playing D on Sanat, right? Like he was taking him the whole time, right? And again, doing a fantastic job. But there was the same conversation, right? There was room to take him out for a spell, put Ofek in, spread that court even a little bit more, but they chose not to do that. I'm wondering how much the foul trouble. I mean, when's the last time Gabe played 39? Did
you ever feel that Gabe was going to foul out though?
Yeah,
he had 2 fouls within. He had 2 fouls within 2 minutes.
I know,
they switched him out. He was going to foul him out. He was getting calls for all the bodies down. Again, it's a question of if he passed the place not 1-on-1, right? Then they're calling the contact. The problem is if he gets 4 fouls, you're in the same position as if he gets 5. Like then you have to figure out what to do. So they just didn't want him to get that 4th foul.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. And you know what would have been interesting? I was thinking about this, and then I realized they couldn't do it because I would have been interested in seeing them put Ryan on Sanat in that scenario, like they did with Laird's. The issue is they had to put Ryan on what's his name, Santos, because he was literally breaking down everybody off the dribble, and so they had to put Ryan on him. So they couldn't really go with the strategy of trying to front Sanat with Ryan. But that would have been something I would have been interested in seeing if they went small. One other thing to mention is there a reason Oren Batesh wouldn't get at least some minutes in this?
Something.
I don't get it.
I don't get it at all. Why don't you try a 5-out lineup when they're stacking the D?
That's it.
I think what would have happened is Sanat comes out of the game, and that's a win anyways. Meaning, I think that's what happens. I think when Sanat was playing, he literally. I mean, somebody's going to tell me if they have a defensive 3-second call in college anymore. I don't think you do when you're playing a zone or a man.
No.
But he was literally in that paint for almost the entire possession, just waiting. I don't know why Batesh couldn't get. I think we asked it about the IWU game also, right? When they couldn't buy a 3, it's like if you're looking for a spark, right? You know, it's probably Batesh,
especially
not
against defenses that are playing that strategy, right? Especially against defenses that are really sagging off non-shooters, that really muddles up the offense in the middle, and especially when YU plays. It's a debate whether it's a 4-out, 1 in, or 5-out motion offense. But when you're playing that type of offense, you have to be able to go 5-out.
Gabe was not in the high post tonight. So if Gabe's not going to be in the high post,
they didn't really allow him in the high post though.
Okay,
that was really Farmingdale.
Then you got to go
it's a double because anytime he goes in the high post, it's a double. But then you already have a guy standing there.
But then you got to go 4 shooters. That's it.
The one thing that you get, because
otherwise, Gabe is a non-factor on offense if he's not in the high post.
Well, he did go. So Gabe did take 7 threes, and he went 3 for 7, and he actually could have taken a bunch more.
We saw him hesitate on a bunch of them, but if he's going to be
which I think shooter, I think he was right to hesitate. Meaning, like early in the shot clock, life for shooting a wide open 3 isn't like necessarily what you want to see because you could still develop a play. And
even though the crowd was calling
again, if you're wide open, you're wide open. That's it.
Nah, but you got to get the motion. Listen, you got to get the motion going. He also made great. I thought he really made good. Like we were talking about before you jumped on, there were 3 or 4 plays where we got it over the defender to Jordan, who missed a layup, or to somebody else sort of on their man who missed a layup. He was still making good plays. He also had 2 pumps where he was able to drive and get fouls on Sanat, right, which got him into his foul trouble and made to the offensive defense substitution. So there were so many
plays at the end.
I think he was playing it well rather than just jacking up threes. Yeah, but 13,
he definitely played well. But if it's going to be a 3-point shooting game, then he has to be the only guy who can't shoot, and you got to have 4 shooters around him. That's it.
I mean, he's a 40% 3-point shooter. It's not horrible. It wouldn't be bad, but 13 shots has got to be the most shots I think he's taken so far this year. I don't know if there's another game this year.
Yeah, probably.
It's also, this is a key distinction, I think, between the 1920 team and this team. And it's actually something, I remember the coaches were talking about it earlier in the year. Not having Simcha, being able to have a 6'4" guy who can really defend and also be a serious threat that you cannot ignore on the 3-point line, they're missing that. Because like we talk about going small with like putting Oren, and Oren is 5'10", he's going to be a somewhat of a liability defensively. Them lacking that like simple aspect, I think makes this team like less dangerous in a way than 1920.
Yes, but we forget how tall Terrell really is.
Right, but Terrell's
he's legitimately a big guy. Yes, yeah.
I guess the question becomes when you look at the box score, Shua, I mean, when you look at the box score, what jumps out at you? Because like again, like I said, being at the game takes away from the ability sometimes to see the box score and start jumping out. And I'm starting to see things. Listen, they shot over 50% from the 3-point line, right? Meaning
they honestly played fine tonight.
They shot on the offensive, but the volume. Yes. But the volume, right? Like, and that's what I said. Farmingdale State won this game, right? Why you didn't necessarily lose this game? The defense has some things to come out with it, but for the most part, I would expect them 19 3-point shots is not, but I think they average around that per game. I mean, I would expect them to shoot especially with a sagging defender. I would expect them to be shooting more threes, and Halper with only 6 shots overall. Right, that to me jumped out a little bit. Right, with Gabe taking up basically some of the shots that go elsewhere. Matan probably had more shots even at 6.
They were sagging off. Farmingdale was sagging off the non-shooters, but they were all over Ryan and Eitan at 3-point. They were very strategic in their sagging off of non-shooters. Like Ryan did not have an easy shot all game that I remember.
When Ryan actually drove, there was almost 3 guys on him in various ways. But yes,
that's what happens when you're sagging off. When you're sagging 2 players off of non-shooters, it's very easy to both collapse on the paint hard as well as take away shooting threats at the 3-point line, because those guys you're keyed in on are like Ryan and Eitan, and then you also have 2 guys who are literally in the paint just constantly, regardless of what their player that's supposed to be guarding is doing. Right? So you're triple teaming drives, and you're also taking away the primary threat.
So at the end of this, right,
Farmingdale plays us very well.
Very well, and they did the same thing. We were talking about this when we played at Farmingdale, right? They have the same defense, and they were able to basically do the same thing. I'll go pull up that box score, but if I remember correctly, Farmingdale was able to basically contain us for the first half, and I think we pulled away in the second half of that game. So it was really the defense worked. They just didn't have the shooting, right? They didn't shoot 56% from the field that game to be able to back up the impact of the defense. But at the end of the day, that defense impacts us. I think we won that game 80-66. So basically got the same, output. Output offensively. We were up by 3 at the half, right? So then there was the second half push at that point in time that made that happen. I think
Eitan had a better game that game.
Eitan had a much better game. Yeah. I'm looking at the box. He was 8 for 12, 4 threes, 22 points at a line, which again, so they made it. Maybe that's what it was. They keyed in on him. Ryan actually didn't hit a 3 that game, but he had 21. I think the same that he had tonight. Mm-hmm. And Ofek had 15 that game. So again, different story. Gabe actually had a very poor game, 1 for 9 that night. And again, they were giving him the threes. He went 1 for 4. So a little bit different that time around. Oren went, had his came in, hit his 3, and then sat down.
He's not a
lot going on. But Lasko did not play that game. Right, Lasko was not available for that game. So I think obviously a difference in terms of lineup.
Yeah, I think one other thing I guess to touch on the box score. I mean, we've spoken about this a lot, but like Adi had 4 minutes zeros except 2 turnovers.
Is there anybody playing themselves out of the rotation more than Adi?
The thing that sucks is, like, I really like him defensively. Like, he's really good. It's just you can't play a guy who's shooting. I think he's shooting 15% from threes this season. He's like 3 of 8. No, less. He was 218 coming into this game, so I don't know what he, what he. He missed 1. The problem is he's what I saw tonight more than what I've seen on the broadcast, and maybe it was just sort of being live for it. So much indecision when he has the ball on offense, no matter where he catches it. So he's wide open on 3. He'll hesitate to shoot. He caught the ball once down low, ended up turning it over on again among the trees, but he got in there right off a pass. He was down low and it just ends up going out. And then off the drive throwing there. But he's so indecisive, which is so surprising because he's been
on this team for a while. He plays every game. He knows his role. And I think there was a play where you had Ryan hit like a couple buckets in a row, and it's like, okay, so everybody should just try to feed Ryan at that point or do something with it. And he still couldn't figure out what to do. And then we talked about before, one play where he threw it into the bench. He didn't even look at the right side of the court. He had Ofek wide open, and he could have just reversed it, right? At least start the ball reverse, look at the motion going, but it almost freezes when it's in his hand. So it neutralizes that defense.
Yeah, he hesitates. He hesitates on the passes, meaning you can't play him in the second half. The spot's too big for him. That's it.
But I think, do you think? I mean, listen,
I know they need him, but yeah,
enough to take. Could he have played? Could he have played zero the same way Ryan did, or at least been effective? Like, I'm not sure. I haven't seen him with speed like that.
Curious about that. Yeah,
I think he could have played. I think he could have played number 5. I think he could have played 5 on ball really well. Who also had a great game.
Again, he makes sense to play if you're going to actually press. He's perfect for the press.
I just don't think they press enough.
I know, but it's college. It's college. You just got to press. It's crazy.
I think if they press, Santos would have destroyed us.
Yeah,
I think both Santos and Davis are like can beat the press themselves.
There was a game earlier this year where I don't remember. It was really early when Markovic and Lasko. This was like before Lasko got hurt. They were both. I don't remember who they played. They were both pressing and swarming, and like they got like 3 or 4 straight turnovers. They like completely took over this game. It was one of those games where they started slow, but then the second half they just boom. So he could play well defensively. He has that in him, and I just feel like they don't have enough. I mean, it's not a knock. I mean, how many teams do? They just don't have a team full of complete players who can do it all. Like. They've got a bunch of guys who have strengths and weaknesses, and we're all sitting here trying to like pair up the perfect, 5-man matchups and rotations. And I do think that there's merit to all of them. And like the key is just to like, match up your opponent as best as you can and keep guys fresh and not to fall in love with a single lineup that, you're running out for 15 straight minutes and then they're all gassed. I think they're doing a decent job, but it's just at the end of the day, the personnel is the personnel that you have. And like in this game, for example, like you guys are talking about having enough shooters when they're playing off like a sagging kind of D. If Leifer is a shooter, which generally, okay, he's 40% or he's not, you don't really want him shooting. Tonight he went 3 for 7 from 3. So like Batesh probably wouldn't have done better than that. Like that's fine, right? So you have Leifer, Halpert, Terrell, and Lasko on the court. And then Zucker's your one guy really who's not a shooter. So maybe that's why they stuck with it. Like you're still getting that kind of shooter with Leifer, like good enough. And now you've got 4 guys who could kind of shoot. I mean, Lasko, we haven't seen him shoot a ton. He took 1 3 tonight and hit it.
He had a big shot tonight.
Big shot. But he hasn't been raining threes down all year. He's not like a huge volume shooter by any means. Maybe we should see him try to shoot a little more. But I think they did the best that they could. It's just interesting that who like kind of is coming in and out, like seeing Armstrong and Reef barely play.
I agreed with a lot of what you said to me. I agreed with the first. I don't necessarily agree with the differentiate between saying like Gabe is the same as R. It's not just about how they're going to shoot. It's about the effect on the defense. Yeah,
exactly.
Gabe, they can sag off and we're allowing him to shoot 3 of 7. They can't play that type of defense on R. They just can't.
So why can't Jordan get the minutes on D than Matan, right? Like what's holding it back? Let's talk Jordan for a little bit. We had Andrew on the chat asked us to talk a little bit about Jordan. Like he basically plays at the start of plays at the start of halves, right? And then you don't see him, right? Pretty much. He came in I think with 2.5 left in the first half when someone got in foul trouble. But other than that, like you don't see him again. Some games he has block parties, and other games he's just not there.
He does some things really well and some things really badly. Like he can't rebound, but he's pretty good in the flow of the offense, usually not tonight at finishing layups. He can't hit a free throw, can't shoot at all, but he could play defense one-on-one. He could block people, but he seems to have trouble rebounding. Like that's the key, I think. Like Zucker is a dog like at the boards and gives you that effort. And just like, he's probably the one guy on the team that like you're just like, yes, that's what we want to see. Like grabbing the loose balls, diving all over the floor. And I think like Armstrong just like doesn't really have that right now. I don't know. So they can't roll both of them on the court at the same time, but they gotta use one and rest the other. I mean, like, I think it's picking hairs to be like, oh, this one's better than that. I've earlier in the year, I was one of the first to say, like, I'd love to see more Zucker and see what he can do instead of Armstrong. But the truth is that they need both of them just like to spell each other. And, you know, like neither one of them is an A+ overall player, but you know what I mean? Like you have to mix and keep them both in the game. Like this is what you have. Like at the end of the day, what are you going to do? You can't coach them to be better. Like maybe you can, but it kind of is what it is. And you just have to now.
Attitudes to me.
I mean, I know you think like, oh, we could teach them how to box out and we could turn them all into like Dennis Rodman,
but roles, man, like again, at the end of the day here, we're going back to roles, right? Meaning you look at the box score and almost every game, you can look at the box score and see basically the only guy with an offensive rebounds, or maybe one of two people with an offensive rebound, is going to be Matan. He had that one play, right, where he had one essentially where just like he owned that, right? He had basically two. It was awesome. And they weren't easy. He basically wrestled both of those rebounds away, and I think the possession finished with a 3-pointer. So again, he is bringing the intensity. Again, 26 minutes seems like a lot. I think obviously we're riding a comeback. Jordan doesn't play 14 minutes, which is close to his average. I think he averages somewhere around 18. But you know, I think that's going to be a tough one going through. But I think they were trying, right? We saw last game, right, in less contested games, we saw them play a lineup with both of them, which we hadn't really seen. So they're trying to figure things out. That didn't work. It didn't seem like it worked. Which again, I think is part about roles, right? Meaning that when they come in, they're both playing the same offensive and defensive role. Matan does a lot of things better. Again, Jordan's never going to take the ball, which you saw Matan do twice and score from the 3-point line, right? When we talk about people sagging, Matan will actually take that ball from the 3-point line. Typically not from the center, from the top of the key, but if he's on the corners, right, and so if he's on the sides, he'll drive to the basket if he has an angle. So he'll be aggressive, right? We'd like to see that out of him. Jordan typically won't shoot unless he gets a pass underneath. Although he had one nice post-up move early in the game. I know that I'd like to see more out of that, more out of him. But he usually can't do that against someone his size. That player typically has to be a little smaller than him. You see, he tried to do the same thing to Sanat later in the game, and again, most of his shots he moves away from the basket, and therefore it's just harder for him against a guy his size. So there's some places where you can't. There's no advantage.
Yeah. I think
he's the tallest guy in the team, right? And he has 2 rebounds.
Is the man bunniest.
One of the things about Jordan, I think it's as weird as it is to say about him 60 to 30 to 40, he's not fit enough at all. He's a very strong rim protector and second last line of defense, typically but he doesn't play physical enough. You see it most obviously on offense, where he get a pass, great position, and then try to finagle his way to a funky layup as opposed to actually just going straight up with it. But you see it also defensively against bigger guys. Sanat was dominating him in the post, and so while his rim protection, and I've said this all year, I think his rim protection is a major plus. Those aspects, his lack of physicality makes him unplayable against certain lineups. And we saw it tonight, we saw it against IW. He was unplayable in those games.
He's in there a lot to save Gabe, right? To a certain extent, right? To let Gabe roam, to let him make those plays, to come off, get those blocks. Hopefully he can win his one-on-one matchups, right? I think Shua's point is when he can win his one-on-one matchups and help off the dribble, right, he's going to play. If he can't win his one-on-one matchup, then you're already starting from a negative, right? And he has to, the matchup will dictate a little bit of what they do. I think there are 2 things I want to talk about, two big things for me. One of them, just because it's fun to have a last, right, like a 1-point game with a last second, with a last shot play. We need to talk about that last play. And I think specifically there's one thing I want to focus on, and maybe because I'm leading the witnesses a little bit here, but we have to talk. It looks like Yaakov's excited to talk about this last play. He's coming back on. I'm again, every team will do their timeout, no timeout situation, but when that mess happens and you still have 11 seconds left, 10 seconds, 9 seconds left, and there's nothing happening. There was 26 when they got the ball, so 26, I think, 0.2 when they got Ryan, they moved the ball around a bunch. Ryan gets stuck, right before his shot, which actually I was just amazed that he got off that good of a shot, that good of a look, in that. I don't know why you don't call timeout there and set something up once he gets stuck, right? Just reset it, right? Reset it for your players. They're obviously tired to a certain extent. Anyways, he called that 20 after I think Gabe's layup, right, to bring them within 1 on the drive. He was trying to give them time. I think there was a good opportunity to call timeout. So I want to throw that out to the group, and to the fans in the watching in the chat. Talk to us about that last play. We don't get a lot of these. So what should have happened on the last shot, or what could have happened?
I totally agree.
I think the shot itself was fine. The shot was fine. Had a good shot of going in. But when I'm all for try to run him, try to catch him off guard, let's see what happens. But when that didn't happen, you got to call timeout just to get everyone under control. Get your best 5 in there. Maybe they had 2 guys on the floor who weren't shooters at that point. That's when you get the. I don't think Ofek was in the game. I don't think Betesh was in the game. I'm saying that's when you get guys in the game. That's when you run that random play that you practiced 17 times. End of the game play, you have timeouts, multiple timeouts. You got to use them if the offense breaks down there. That's my problem with it. The fact that he actually somehow got off a pretty good look, which I really thought was going to go in, was impressive. But I think when there was a point where you saw Ryan take the 3 dribbles, 4 dribbles, and sort of put his head down, that was the time to call the timeout.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a good look. I'd call it nearly went in. It was not a good look.
A nearly went in look,
off a triple team. Off a triple team. Everyone knows where the ball is going to. Yeah, everybody knows where this goal, and it feels like we could have leveraged that at some point with a play. Right, this is the perfect play to get a play going. And you have guys, or even another shooter open. Right, it just feels like everyone knows it's going to Terrell. They put 3 guys on him, and we still couldn't make something work. And there was time.
Some shooter could have been wide open had you called the timeout. Yes, inbound the ball to Terrell. 3 guys are running to him. You got 1 guy wide open.
So I'll play devil's advocate for a second. I do think that they should have called timeout, but this offense doesn't have set plays, right? So they're not going to actually have a play for Ryan to get a look or a ball.
They do. They don't. Sorry.
They do.
Mentioned
don't they famously not have any?
But yeah, they don't typically. Elliot mentioned they do end of game plays, which came out of certain practice, certain things that came out of the motion that they liked.
Yeah, he mentioned warriors. We have warrior. We have
those type shooter.
I'd be very surprised. Again, let's pretend we're in a situation where they have 0 set plays. Most teams have end of game plays, and if not, draw one up. Right, all you're doing really is using the same things. So draw one up, call timeout, use the board, draw one up, and even if you want Ryan to take that shot, at least get him some action. Somebody has a board somewhere out there.
They have an end of shot clock play, right? I'm saying there's an end of shot clock play. It doesn't even have to be end of game play. They've definitely got to the end of the shot clock before in life, and Elliot knows what they're going to call then. That's it. It's the end of shot clock play.
Elliot is typically very, very the motion
run the offense,
open shots. So they don't really, but he did they do definitely have end of game plays. But I think the point, and I actually didn't think about this until you just mentioned it, which was a very good point, is getting the best 5 offensive players out there, even just that, and running a play,
get your defensive guy off the court. 5 shooters, whatever it might be.
That is the time maybe to take Matan off the court, although you really do want the offensive rebound in that situation.
What specific substitution would you have made? I don't know that I see
I think I would have taken, to be honest, I think I would have taken Lasco off at that point for Reef. I think that's the one thing. Again, Ofek hadn't been out there enough.
That's it.
Hadn't been out there enough. You also don't need 3 shooters. I mean, they're going to key on Ryan.
You don't catch and shoot. Yeah.
You only
That's the problem when you fall in love with a lineup and Reef has been cold, meaning physically sitting on the bench for 20 minutes. That makes that tough. I don't disagree in theory that would make sense, but I thought for nothing else other than, honestly, I was like, why did they call timeout before, at the 26 seconds or whatever it was?
So, because that's at least the coaching decision, right?
I know, lets them play. But come on, you're down 2 and you're just going to do it. You're just going to let them go. take a breath.
But I mean, like, look at times.
The Phil Jackson,
We could go back to that Farmingdale, like the Gabe Leifer game winner. That there wasn't a play, and you got a very good running the offense and the attention paid to Ryan. So like that, it happens, but that, so I wouldn't have any issue with not calling a timeout at the beginning. Once Ryan was with the triple team and there was nothing happening.
Yeah, I think you got to call timeout there. I also want to go back and look at the film because again, I was focused on a couple areas and probably on the right side of the court. You had Eitan very close to him actually, which is hard to make a pass with guys sort of right there, right? It's almost like it's a triple team and then you're bringing another defender in. But I would have liked to see a Gabe cut to the basket because I think again you had both Sanat and. Actually, Sanat was going offense, defense. I don't know if he was out there for that play, actually. But you had the big guys coming in. They're players. There may have been an opportunity for a cut. But that's where I think call timeout, set yourself up with
you're right.
A slasher, two shooters, and a big man, and help Ryan get a secondary option.
Yeah. You're definitely right about looking at the film because we don't like – we were all focused on that. We have no idea who was open without seeing the extra, without focusing not just on Ryan taking that shot.
Spacing was bad.
The problem is if everyone
won't enjoy it because I think once Ryan got triple team, they stopped moving.
You're right. You're right.
The rest of the team.
That's what I'm concerned because that's what I feel like happened. Was everybody froze in place?
Everyone's looking at Ryan. Both teams are looking at him.
Not for nothing. That shot goes up, right?
Yep,
it misses. It goes in and out. It goes in and out, and you almost see, at least from my vantage point, maybe look back at this too. You almost see Matan like turn around and be like game over, but there's 2.5 seconds left on the clock when the guy gets the ball, and then he realizes he can still foul because it's only a 2-point game. Now the guy hit both free throws. I get it, right, and put it out of reach. But if you foul there, now you have 2.5 seconds left, and the guy's going to line. There's a lot more pressure than 0.9, and he knows even if he misses, you're not getting a shot off. So again, I also think like staying within the game mentally, there had to be something there. But the other thing I wanted to bring up, which I think is important, just to like get everyone back to the to like how much does this matter, and also there's two parts of this, right? There's like what does it mean to YU right now? In terms of their pursuit, right? How much did it make a difference? How much didn't it? Relative to, rankings that obviously are going to be affected, but those are not ones that factor in to either tournament seeding or otherwise. And then the second part of this is also, I wouldn't be surprised if they meet Farmingdale again if they win by 20. I mean, like, Farmingdale averages shooting about 38% from three and 44% from the field. Tonight they shot 56% and 58% from three, 56% from the field. So again, inspired play. Their bench was 7 for 9. Again, guys, like, so I don't know how much they can count on playing like this. Davis had a phenomenal game, 5 for 6, right? 3 for 3 from 3. So like guys just didn't miss. They were making great plays. Some of those were uncontested, but they were really making plays that they typically don't make against lesser competition. So their intensity was amazing. I would love to see YU play one game with, like, they kept their intensity all 40 minutes and they did not panic. So just want to see how you guys feel about both sides of that, whichever one you want to take. How does this matter long term, for YU fans to understand, like, what's the perspective there? And then, what does this mean from even from a skyline standpoint, right? Is this a fallible YU team? Are we thinking they're too good? They were ranked number 1, right, guys? Did I miss that? They were ranked number 1.
Yeah, we were ranked
less than 6-8 weeks ago. Talk to me, Shua.
So I'll take the first step. From the perspective of like quantitatively, I guess technically quantitatively, it doesn't make any difference whatsoever in terms of their chances this year. In terms of their chances of making the tournament, it has a negligible impact. If they win St. Joseph, Connecticut, then they have a very, very outside shot at a at-large bid. But that was true before this loss. And if they lose Skyline, they're likely not in. If they win Skyline, they're likely in. So from that perspective, it makes zero difference. In terms of this happening, I mean, I guess you could say a similar thing as the IW game, as much as I hate to say it, but like, you'd rather this, again, we were all like coasting in the Skyline. And it was like, okay, Skyline is going to be simple. It's going to be easy. We don't need to necessarily even do prep for the individual teams. We could just coast through it, and we'll get to the tournament. You'd rather see a Farmingdale State team like this now, when it doesn't matter for playoff implications or for the playoffs, than on likely Skyline Conference Championship Sunday, where we're very likely to face the same Farmingdale State team at home. And hopefully this will be some form of an eye-opener in terms of just that they're not necessarily unbeatable they're clearly not unbeatable in the Skyline, but that they really need to take this very serious. So I think from that perspective, it's a positive. The negative is, and we were talking about this right at the beginning, is like we spent a lot of time talking about a lot of individual things.
Well, I would say, Shua, what you're saying is it could be a positive, meaning it has the potential to be a positive if it had to happen. I don't know that I take it as a positive, but right. it could be something that can end up, right? I
don't see it as a negative.
Something better, right? Well, losing by general, I think is in general a negative, but
it didn't have an implication on their actual. Maybe it told us what type of team they are. That's possible, but I don't view that as a negative or a positive. That's just, it is what it is. So I think the only real possibility coming out of it is a positive. I mean, if it makes them play worse going forward, that would be weird, but that's a possibility, I guess. But I think for the most part, the only real, it's either nothing or it's a positive going forward. That's kind of my take on it.
Is this the first loss, by the way, in Skyline in 3 years?
Yes.
Yeah, since Farmingdale. I think, no. Who?
The championship in 2018?
Yeah, since Farmingdale. Yeah. Farmingdale is our last 2 Skyline losses. Yeah.
I think the positive.
So that's kind of my.
I think the partial positive, obviously it's terrible, but I think the positive is that maybe they realize now we need to actually prepare for each team we're going to play, no matter who they are. Skyline, doesn't matter what the ranking is. Let's get ready for every team, because I think this whole season has just been like, let's roll out our lineup. We do our thing. We're better than everyone. And they might be on their best day, but on their worst day, they're not. And sometimes you have to adjust. And hopefully this will get them to be like in the Skyline tournament, like even the first round. I don't know if there's buys. I don't think there is, or maybe they get a buy.
No, it's 1 and 8. No
right?
buys.
Yeah.
They get to play the 8 seed, which is like a buy, but it's
so bottom line is like, you got to scout, you got to prepare for that team, and you got to adjust for that team. Now, I'm not saying Elliott's going to do that, but I think he should do that. I think there was a very there was a point guard tonight beating us off the dribble every time. Had we switched to a zone defense, they were hitting their lucky threes anyway. Why not switch to a zone defense?
I don't know that the threes were that lucky, but I think let's harp on that for a little bit, because I think there's a really good point there, which is we talked for a while now about how Farmingdale takes clearly game plans for YU, right, and takes away, right, or tries to highlight their weaknesses. It's absolutely correct. I mean, I think even go back to the IW, I have not seen once this season where you could identify some way in which YU game planned for another team's offense. Where they played their defense to be able to key up on something, whether a player or a package or something. And I think that is not the hallmark of any team that ends up.
And I think they did that. I think they actually did that in the 09. I don't. Maybe I'm wrong about the date. 2019 tournament. At this point, what was it?
1920. Yeah.
1920 tournament. Right? Yeah. Whatever the date was, whatever that tournament was, the date was. I think they actually planned for each team they played, and I think they came out with a clear game plan, and that's why they looked. Again, they were great, but they looked awesome in those games. They knew exactly what they were doing, and it wasn't just, oh, well, we ran our stuff out there and we were better. No, they knew they were the underdogs in every game. They game planned for those teams, and they came out with a great game plan, and they executed. And I don't think they've done that since that tournament. And I'm not. And this was the question I was going to pose: was, is this team just worse than that team, or are we just not ramping it up and playing the way that team did?
It's a good question. I don't know if they're actually worse. I think I think the point about Simcha that we discussed earlier, I think makes them in a way less dangerous. I think 1920 at their best is better than this team at their best, from what I've seen so far. But there are aspects of this team that are a lot better than the 1920.
It's a really interesting tape because I think you can argue if you wanted to take the 19, right? To me, the argument is if you wanted to take the 1920 team, then what you would be saying is, I have a Terrell who's probably not as good as this Terrell.
Not as good, yeah.
I have a Simcha though who's better than, I have a better Gabe probably, right, than the Gabe that we're seeing game in game out. A much more aggressive Gabe, a much more game. Although really, again, I haven't seen him be as into a game and into an outcome during the game as much as I saw tonight. But that's not a game in, game out. And you have a Simcha who's going to be arguably the second best player on that team, and you don't have a great player like that. I think you have Eitan like last game or other games where he can be, somewhat to that level, but not on the defensive end of the ball, right? So you're basically saying those three better players, even with the rest of the lineup sort of filling them out. I think, and this is maybe a bad take, but I actually, I would rather have both Jordan and Matan than Donnie. Cats, that's my take on that. I think I think they're more, they have more tools, and they're more physically ready to play than Donnie. Donnie is not to take away from Donnie. I think Donnie brought more cerebral aspects to it as well, along with that talent. But I do think that's a better team. I think if I'm arguing for the other side, I'm saying I got the best Ryan by far. I got a good enough team around him, and I've got a deeper team. Right, I got a team that can play at least 7 deep and then throwing guys here and there. So it is an interesting argument. That when the streak was still alive is not one that anybody talks about. Simi, what's your take on where YU is? Forget about this team, that team. You could jump in if you want to on that, but you're jumping in the same. What do you think this means going forward? You said this is sort of the first close game that you saw. What's your takeaways, right? Or is it basically like, okay, all right, just got to go back to the drawing board. We played a game, we lost it. It was a close one.
Was that addressed to me?
Simi, go ahead. Yeah.
I think, I don't have too much to add versus what you guys said. I mean, it might not mean anything for our chances of, either way, we have to win the skyline and whatever, but they need us. I'm saying they, but it's really we, because to be fair, we don't really know how much they're preparing, what's going on behind the scenes for every single game or whatever, but we, the fans, for speak for myself, says they got to stop looking ahead. Take it one game at a time with this team and don't take anything for granted. Because some of these other teams are, and I think Ari Lamb made this point, they all gear up for us. They want to play their best game against us. I think that's still the case. Even if we're not number 1, if we're number 6, number 10, I think that's where the ranking does matter. These other teams still look at us as this is a chance for us to have an amazingly huge win. And so they come totally prepared. One thing that stood out to me, just as you guys were just comparing kind of this season versus prior seasons. And I'm not I wasn't there for the prior seasons, but I could just tell you from what I've seen this whole year, Ofek Reef, what is going on there? At the beginning of the season, he was looking to me like a superstar, the top 2 player on this team, or 3 with Leifer, definitely a key part to the offense. And I get, okay, this particular game, maybe they didn't let Leifer do his post up. And so that kind of, influences but still Ofek has a really dynamic all around game. I've seen him he's explosive. He drives to the hoop with the ball. He doesn't have to just cut and wait for a pass. He could take the ball to the hoop, just like Zucker took the ball takes the ball down. You know what I mean? And make something happen. Ofek should do that. Where is he gone?
Sure, I think take this away. I mean, Simi, do you think there's because I would definitely want you to the lineup stats and how often they play together. I'm just thinking about if we think about the ingredient, right? How does Lasco affect Ofek's game? Because I'm not sure they play much together in the same lineup. I can't think of too many.
Yeah, it seems to be
you think it's usually the sub
one or the other on the court. They don't seem to play too much together.
Nathan, I'll look into that for you. I'll get back
to me, Ofek and Lasco couldn't be more different players.
That's the surprising thing to me. Is I wouldn't
is the
think
ultimate. He's the ultimate wild card guy. I mean, when he gets hot, it's awesome. When he has confidence, it's great. Lasko is the ultimate. Tonight was Lasko's best game that we've had. I don't recall Lasko really. He's a very passive guy. He's all the tools. Tonight, he finally took it to the hole. He made huge plays down the stretch. We've never seen that from him before. So if he plays like that,
sadly, I think the one game he got was his best game.
But we've seen that from Ofek, and we've seen much better than this, even Lasko's best game. Like, we've seen Ofek have 25-point games and
is injured.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't play the second half of which game? The Tuesday night game against Maritime, right? I think was the one he was out for, or maybe the Sunday game. I think it was
all
the Sunday game.
I know these injuries. I mean, I don't know. It's hard.
There's clearly a difference in Ofek pre-IW and post-IW this year. Like there's something very, very different.
I just don't see him acting.
Like, he's not getting his chances. He's not getting to the rim. He's not finishing at the rim. He's not doing the things.
Don't you think it was the game before? The game before is the one he missed a ton of free throws.
That's when he fell apart.
I know. I think that was the beginning of the end, right, for this season right now.
I don't know, beginning of the end. I think we may be getting ahead of ourselves there.
No, I'm not saying we're done with it.
Lasko and Ofek can coexist, right? I mean, Ofek's not the ball handler. He's not like the things that Lasko's doing on the offensive end and on the defensive end are not going to me, they're not asked to play the same role, right? Lasko's going to D up on one of the, on either the one or the two. So there's no reason they shouldn't be able to coexist more. We haven't seen the Ofek, aggressive Ofek, intensity Ofek, but tonight, again, I'm not seeing signs that he's injured, right? He had to play later in the game where it would have been great to see him finish, but he went up strong, got fouled. I think
the thing is that neither of them are spot up shooters. So if they're both
but early in the season, Ofek's. I got to look back at this, but Ofek's shooting on the 3-point line, right? Shooting from the 3-point line on an open shot off of the motion was actually pretty good. If I remember correctly, I think he hit a 3 in all the first 4 or 5 games.
I don't remember the last time he hit a 3, right?
I don't know the last time he's taken a 3. That's the thing is, like, I don't know that it's happening in the offense. Like, to me, the question is this, is this a choice? Because again, like you said, he started the season like he was shot out of a cannon, now it's become he's still right. Is he still the
he was our second best player.
Scorer. Yeah. I'm not sure what the the stats right now, but basically he's still the number 2 scorer on the team, right? So even with all this, he's averaging 14 a game. He had a pretty solid game last game, but he's not. He's now only taken 22 threes. I got to go back earlier in the year and see, did he, how much of this changed since earlier in the year? Because he was definitely more involved in the flow of the motion offense earlier in the year. So cool. I know we're coming to the end of it. And what should we look for? I know we have obviously, still February 17th circled, although I'll have to wake up tomorrow morning feeling better about all that.
I don't think February 17th matters. I mean, it's great. I would love to win that game. It'd be awesome.
It's the only game that might matter. It's also the only game that matters. Still, it's not 100% clear that YU won't have a potential at-large bid if they win the state.
You're right. I mean,
but the only possible chance they have for an at-large bid is winning the game. So it's the only real game that really does matter on their schedule outside of the playoffs.
Yeah,
the Skyline playoffs.
But I need to after the IW game, we said nothing matters till the tournament. I think we now realize every game actually matters.
Yeah,
that's it.
And it matters even if it doesn't matter, because it's an opportunity to try different lineups and practice the little things we want to see them get better at, and mental toughness, and stop complaining about calls, and all the little things we want to see them improve on. You got to put it into practice. Like, the Skyline tournament doesn't start tomorrow. We still have these other games. So that's their chance to implement.
One other thing before we end off, my Twitter friends would hate me if I didn't mention this, but the boxing out again, it's it's kind of being forward, but it's excusable, really. Like what I saw in that game it's brutal. The players the ball goes up, the players look at it and then are surprised when someone flies in for a rebound over them.
I watched it because you pointed it out on the Sunday game, and it was not watchable. Meaning they were against a lesser opponent. It didn't matter. At the end of the day, there was no boxing out. It's literally the ball. We hope we know where the ball is going to come. It's tough to watch. There's no man on body.
Oh, it's painful. Yeah. And again, on a couple of them now on free throws, right? On defensive free throws. Yeah, the other team shooting free throws. And
that rebound, I don't blame him. If you watch the tape on that one, Matan tried to box him out, and I don't know who was on Farmingdale actually had a nice move to get around him. So that's excusable. It's like that I can understand, like getting beat when you're trying to box out, but it's the ones where they're just looking at the ball that really bother me.
So I am confirming. I've been going around. I've been trying to check the stats. I'll do more of it, but I am confirming. I mean, like in the first 7 games of the year, outside of one game where I think he played 13 minutes and went 2 for 2 that game. But Ofek really, that's where he had basically 6 games, 94 points in those games. So averaging about 16 a game. And then it's been a little bit, and they'll check it sort of the post IW and otherwise, but there may be something to this one, Shua.
Yeah.
We shall see.
Hopefully. I mean, the sad thing is, like, you kind of like would wish that they would have the chance to like rest people a lot and like get everyone healthy going into March, but like that's not really an option.
It's not really an option. It's interesting to see how much you're gonna like what this does. Like that's the one thing I'm interested in is, when we start seeing as we start like some of the experimentation of, we're talking about the Jordan Matan at the same time and other things going on. They're gonna still have 4 or 5 games against teams that they're gonna beat by 20, 30, maybe even more. What does that look like? The first round, they're probably going to get in the first round of the playoffs. They might get Sarah Lawrence or some of those teams that they're going to be. It's not until they get to the semis that they're probably going to have another tough game outside this, in conference, right outside of the St. Joe's game. So just looking to see what the intensity level looks like, because even from the start of this game, the more intense team by far, right, was Farmingdale, and why you didn't even have the intensity. And maybe that's it. Like I still, we said how much does it matter? Like this whole thing, I have no idea still why Gav started. I don't know if it was about him or, like a senior night thing because he's not going to be there, or, if it was, I thought maybe they were going to do a special moment for Ryan and check him in right away and sort of have like a recognition, sort of the game, from that breaking the record.
That was just weird.
It was weird. There was no announcement. There was no communication, nothing. But if I'm Farmingdale, right, like that amps me up even more. It's right. Is they think they can pull this stuff with against us because it's not going to matter. All right, great. We're going to hit our first 2 shots.
Why choose this game to break that out?
Right. Like I don't again, like I said,
something like that.
It could have been there or Gav. Again, it may be somebody. Again, I have no idea what it was about, but a little, again, didn't see the intensity all game. Right. The fact that Ryan didn't start, and why was it Ryan? Why was it not like somebody else? I have no idea. Yeah. But the fact that happened didn't put the what's it called? Like there was no intensity. The intensity that was there even at the start of the USM May game, at the start of the Sarah Lawrence game, whether they carried through for 40 minutes or not, they were so invested. Both those games, they went out 29-9, 29-8, I think in the other game, or 28-8. That didn't exist tonight. That intensity was not there from the start, and partly because of that move. So again, whether they thought they could sort of replicate it somehow, even outside of that, I just think it takes, to me it was. If I'm Farmingdale, I'm like, great, they're not taking us seriously. We are going to buckle down for 40 minutes. Their coach was so into, like, their whole staff was so into this game. Every call, like they really are hanging on. We have a target on our back. They wanted to win. I think there's some extra juice there that you could probably talk about. The refs wanted to be part of the show. Obviously, they feel like they needed some.
I don't like blaming. I just don't like blaming refs. I don't.
Oh, you can't. You can't. But you can see, I don't think it was anything to do with the refs in terms of the outcome. I really don't. And I said that at the stadium to a number of people as it was happening. But you did have.
You must have been the fun guy at the stadium.
Exactly. You did have a referee though that felt like he was part of the game. Like he felt like meaning he was making calls and acting. Right, in a way, like pushing, making it again. You see that in the NFL sometimes. Elliott wanted to talk to him. He was waving him off. He was whatever. It just, I said he went once. He saw Ofek talking, and he decided to go switch with another guy, so that he was next to Ofek. It felt like again he was getting too connected to the game, as opposed to just playing your role. Know you're going to be hated always when you get at a team if you call something against the home crowd. That's what you're signing up for. I was just surprised that he was a little bit part of the show, and he wouldn't budge on that double foul call because the other guy clearly had a charge, and he wouldn't budge. He wouldn't budge on it, and they ended up with a double foul. Like Ellie was pissed about the double foul. He was pissed.
I thought he should have gotten teed up. Not that his actions should have gotten teed up. I thought he should have gotten teed up in that instance.
Somebody should have been teed up at some point because there was a foul call after that play. They sent, even after the foul call before the conversation, not that play. There was an earlier play where they sent everybody to the bench on another foul. Like one of the refs sent everyone to the bench. You could sense the tension in the place, right? Like they didn't do anything to diffuse the tension that was going on. I don't think as much of it was happening between the players. The players seemed to be comfortable with each other and not really asking.
No, they seemed friendly.
Nobody was showing up anybody. There wasn't anybody in the game.
There was
24 was a little excited. He said goodbye.
Remember that play where Eitan came to double and then he flopped? So Sanat just grabbed him and lifted him up.
So that happened. Alaska got a flop warning, which was interesting. I saw that.
I think it was. They were.
Every pick they were flopping a little bit. They do oversell. But again,
it's frustrating to see. That Halpert play was it stuck out to me just because you're never gonna get the call in that instance. You come to double team, go for the ball. Go for the double team. Don't flop out of there the instant.
I gotta go look at that. I gotta look at the film on that call. I want to see the last play up a bunch of times again because they're gonna come to that.
Also watch that one where both fell. I guess watch the second half.
The double foul or which one?
No, we're two players on white where Halpert fell into Lasco, I think, and they both went down.
Yeah, where the foul I think ended up getting called.
So I'm pretty sure I hit him.
Oh, so I got Ailey Bernack coming out here on the chat with an answer. Thank you for that. It seems like why you filled out the card wrong. Although I'm not sure that can't be changed pre-game. But they filled out the card wrong and wrote 10 instead of 11.
Wait, legit?
Legit. That's what we're hearing. That Mrs. Terrell. Thank you, Mrs. Terrell, for sharing us. Thank you, Laurel. Appreciate it. But that is just silly. Now it explains why it was Terrell or otherwise. So that's just sloppy, right? You write 10 on the card. Just it's like why you take student taking a test. Great, so just cross out the O or turn it into a 1. Do whatever you can. But they handed the lineup card, and they wrote 10 instead of 11. Come on. Come on. Come on. That's like the golfing rules, right? If you score your thing, whatever, that's what counts.
Maybe the same ref wouldn't let them change your friend over there.
That's got to be I've actually never seen that.
We could.
So we are making
it just
news.
Happens if we don't notice.
We are making
when you fill out the lineup card in baseball.
Exactly, and this is why, by the way, now it makes sense why they didn't announce anything, because who wants to make that announcement, right? Of the admitting what happened. Nobody's going to want to make that call. Fans, ladies and gentlemen, please pay attention. We screwed up. We forgot Ryan's number, and we've started Gav. So I'm happy that Gav got his first start. Appreciate it. If fans out there can confirm or deny if my daughter's right that he looks exactly like Tom Holland, but she is she's excited about that. But otherwise, that is one for the books. Remember that game we lost?
We've had 11 on in every starting lineup since 2017.
Just make a photocopy. Just you should pre-print the lineup cards for the next whatever, just photocopies. But or use faces. use people's faces. Don't use numbers. Just put them up there. But that is something good. Thank you, Eli, for helping us clarify that one. That was a weird one, and now it makes sense. But awesome, Shua. I'm sure we'll talk more.
Yeah.
Have a wonderful night. More Max basketball. Hopefully some better defense and other things coming our way. And
they have so many days that we get to. It's not as bad as the IW where you lose basketball for like a month. Here we
right.
get
to exactly. That's what's in the airtime. But I'm sure you'll have you have great connections with your coaches and with other folks. I'm sure you'll get us some interesting takes, and we'll see it whether on Twitter or otherwise. We'll see what's going on there. But awesome, and I wonder what this means for the lineups going forward. Right, like that's a lot of minutes for that last lineup. It's just interesting. I hope
it did well.
It did really well, but you can't win only trusting 6 players. You just can't. So I hope we didn't play ourselves into that scenario. Awesome. Have a great night, right. Mayor. Thanks again for setting this up. Goodbye to the 20, 25 or so people watching and rotating. We appreciate it. And, keep us coming, keep the chat going. Take Ball Habatim, sign up, subscribe, so you get notified when we do these impromptu live post games or other reactions. Keep doing that. Keep signing up. Follow us on Twitter, Ball Habatim. Follow us on Instagram, where Mayor is having fun. We might do some nice cut-ups this week if we can get that going. So awesome. Have a wonderful night, and we'll talk.
All right. Yeah.
Go Max.
Go Max.